You might be on your laptop listening to me, and there might be some LED lights in your room, maybe a bottle of water, or some chocolates, or some snacks near you. So, a lot of research has gone into making and perfecting almost everything you use and consume in your life. So, research is not just big questions like how did the universe form or how to cure cancer. So, rather, research can start from very ordinary moments in our lives. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
All right. Great. So, before we begin, I want you to just look around and for a moment just feel it. And you might be on your laptop listening to me, and there might be some LED lights in your room, maybe a bottle of water, or some chocolates, or some snacks near you. So, a lot of research has gone into making and perfecting almost everything you use and consume in your life. So, people have asked questions, collected data, tested ideas, and used the results to improve products, systems, and decisions. So, research is not just big questions like how did the universe form or how to cure cancer. So, rather, research can start from very ordinary moments in our lives when we notice a pattern and ask ourselves like is this really true or am I just imagining it? So let's start with research design. So basically research design is a roadmap of a study. It tells us what questions we are asking, what we are studying, and how we'll collect data and analyze it. Research design can generally be classified into qualitative and quantitative research. Qualitative research uses non numerical data such as interviews, case studies, and observations to understand the meaning and experiences in more depth. Its main aim is to basically capture the behaviors and perspectives of people. Whereas quantitative research uses numerical data to understand patterns, differences, or relationships. It aims for objectivity, replicability, and insights that are generalizable to a larger group. So it is not like one is better than the other. The right choice depends on your research question, the context, and which approach will best help you to answer it. So, in this session, I'll give you a simple overview of quantitative research and some key statistical tools. And my aim here is not to turn all of you into statisticians in 20 minutes, but to give you a mental map of what's happening when you see numbers and results in research papers and how they are used to draw conclusions about the world. So, once we know our design, the next question is who exactly are we going to study? The population is the entire group of people you want to study. Suppose you want to find the relationship between, let's say, eating chocolates and its impact on math scores in an exam. So, in the ideal scenario, you could collect data from every student in your school, but that is almost impossible. So, what you do is you collect data from a sample, which is a small subset of the population. Sampling is the process of selecting that subset so that it represents the population. And this allows us to draw conclusions about the population without studying every single person. Once we collect data, we face a very basic question what to do with all these numbers. So that's where data analysis comes in, and this is what it like data analysis turns those numbers into knowledge. And it is a process of applying statistical and logical methods to make sense of the data. It means turning raw data or numbers into clear summaries, identifying patterns or trends, and using them to answer your research question. For example, using the data about chocolate eating frequency and math scores to figure out whether chocolate eaters really tend to have better scores in maths exams. All right. So, data analysis has three aspects: chart analysis, which involves visualizing the data. Then you have descriptive statistics, which helps us in summarizing the data and understanding the shape of the distributions. And then you have inferential analysis, which helps us to understand things about the whole population just using the data from our sample. All right. So chart analysis is where we often begin by drawing charts to visualize the data. We use different charts for different purposes. A bar graph compares quantities across categories like average math scores in different grades. A pie chart shows proportions of a whole, such as the percentage of students who prefer milk chocolate, dark chocolate, or let's say white chocolate. And a line graph shows trends over time. For example, how average math scores change across different semesters. And the scatter plot simply shows the relationship between two variables like hours spent studying and exam scores. So suppose we have data of chocolate eating frequency and math scores from students. Which chart would we use in this case? And so since we want to explore the relationship between chocolate frequency and scores, a scatter plot is most ideal, and this is how it would look like. So here we always start with what is the key information I want from this data, and then ask what chart makes that easiest to see for us. Okay. Now, next we have descriptive statistics, starting with central tendency. So it is the statistical measure that summarizes a set of data with single value representing the middle or center of the distribution. There are three common measures for this. Mean is the value by averaging over that we find by averaging over the data set, and median is the middle value when numbers are arranged in a certain order, and mode is the most frequently occurring value. So let's look at a simple example of how these are computed. So for the data of chocolate eating frequency, mean is calculated by adding all the values and dividing by the total number of values. And to find the median, first we have to arrange the numbers in an increasing or decreasing order, then pick the middle value. In this example, the middle value is 3. Mode is simply the value that appears most often. In this data set, 3 is also the mode as it appears most number of times. So central tendency tells us how roughly where the center of the data lies, but not how spread out the values are. So for that we have deviation in data. Deviation in data means how far each value is from what we expect, which is usually the mean value. So it helps us understand how much data points vary and what is their distribution. And standard deviation being the most common measure of deviation, it measures how spread out the data is around the mean. So a small standard deviation means most values are close to the mean, while a large standard deviation means values are more spread out. So in our chocolate and maths example, if frequent chocolate eaters have similar math scores, the standard deviation would be small. If their scores are very different from each other, the standard deviation will be large. So now it's your turn to do a small piece of activity. Okay, so I have shared an Excel file in the chat. It has math scores from a sample of students along with their roll numbers. You need to figure out what is the mean and the standard deviation of the score, and you have to comment your answers in the chat. So the first one to give the answer wins 500 rupees, and you can buy lots of chocolates from it. So let's see who answers it first and wins the prize. And your time has started. So you have 3 minutes to give the answer.
So it's 9:30 exactly, 9:33, by 9:33 we'll expect the answers. So good luck to all of you.
Right, both values in the chat, please. All right, so we need value of standard deviation also. We have some answers. All right, for those of you who couldn't do it, so I'll provide you with the formula you can use in Excel. For calculating mean, you can use this equal to average formula, and for standard deviation, you can use equal to standard stdev.s formula. Since we have the answers from some of you, I'll move ahead. So, okay, hopefully you enjoyed it. So what you have just done is some basic piece of quantitative analysis, which is using formulas to summarize a data set with the mean and the standard deviation. So far, we have done descriptive stats and descriptive analysis and addressed what does our sample data look like. Now we come to the more interesting part, which is inferential analysis. So this goes one step further and explores if this is what we see in our sample, what might be true for the whole population. For instance, the sample you collected might show that on average, those who eat chocolates frequently tend to have higher math scores. But could this just be because of random chance in this group, or is this a real effect for the whole population? Inferential analysis helps you tackle questions like this by testing your hypothesis. So hypothesis testing is a statistical method used to decide whether sample data provides enough evidence to support or reject a claim about a population. There is null hypothesis, which assumes that there is no relationship between the variables or factors we are trying to study. And the alternate hypothesis is that there is a relationship or a difference or some effect between the variables. So usually alternate hypothesis is your claim, and our job is to use the data to see whether there is enough strong evidence to reject the null hypothesis. So if our aim is to examine the relationship between frequency of chocolate consumption and students' performance in maths exam, we usually start with a null hypothesis, which might say there is no relationship between chocolate consumption and maths performance, and the alternate hypothesis will be there is a relationship between these two. So now we have formulated our hypothesis. Now what tells us when can we reject the null hypothesis? So when we run a statistical test, we get a number called p-value. It tells you if the null hypothesis were actually true, how likely it is to get results like ours or even stronger just by chance. So if this sounds a bit too technical, for now just think of p-value as a number that tells us how easily our result could happen by luck. So if the p-value is small, it means our result would hardly ever happen just by chance. So if we treat it as a strong evidence that something really might be going on here. And if the p-value is not small, our result could easily happen by luck or chance. So the evidence is not very strong. So we can say that the main idea here is, you should remember that small p-value implies stronger evidence for your claim, while big p-value means weaker evidence. Okay, so now to carry out the hypothesis testing, we use statistical tests. These help us decide whether the pattern we see in our sample is strong enough to count as evidence or whether it could easily be due to chance. So let's see which test we use depends on our research question and the type of data that we have. So here we'll look at some common ones. Okay, so first one is t-test, which compares the average of two groups and checks if they are really different or is the observed difference purely by chance. So let's say, for example, we could compare the average maths marks of students who eat chocolate often with those who rarely eat it and see if there's real difference or it is just by chance. Next, we have ANOVA, which is analysis of variance. And ANOVA is similar to t-test, but it works with 3 or more groups at the same time. So for example, we might compare math scores for students from 3 different schools. Okay, and then you have correlation. which represents the strength and the direction of the relationship between two variables. Okay, so for example, we might look at whether more hours of study like whether studying for more hours is associated with getting higher marks in your exams. Okay, and then finally there is regression, which looks at how an outcome changes when one or more other factors change. So the outcome variable is called the dependent variable, and the factors are your independent variables. For example, we might predict the price of a car using its age and how many kilometers it has been driven. Sorry, and so using this, you can understand if there's if it has a relationship and how it changes. Okay, so it's an important tool because it helps us measure and predict the effect of several factors at the same time. And there are many types of regression used in research, but this basic idea is common to all of them. Okay, so we looked at some steps of hypothesis testing. So first we formulate the hypothesis, and we say that one has no effect and the other has some effect. Okay, then we choose a suitable test, we analyze the data and then get a p-value. Based on that, we decide whether to reject or not reject the null hypothesis. And then we finally interpret the results and explain what that means for our question. So thank you all for listening to me, and I hope you really enjoyed this short workshop, and I hope it has given you a clearer picture of how quantitative research works, and it encouraged you to start asking your own questions and exploring them with data. So yeah, thank you for your attention. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Khushbu Sinha. It was really good. Very, very nice presentation and, very well explained. I hope everyone enjoyed it. So,
Yeah, friends, if you have a question,
yeah, please ask.
To ask Dr. Khushbu, this is the right time. Amishi, Anish, Arya.
Okay, looks like everyone is too excited to present their work on it. So, I guess, yeah,
Alright.
we can start with their presentations too.
Also, should we announce the winner of the activity?
Yeah, please, yeah.
So I think it is Anish, right?
Yeah, so congratulations,
Congratulations.
Congratulations. So you win rupees 500, so you can buy as many chocolates as you want, like, as Dr. Khushbu said. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So